Welcome back to another episode of the Reseller's Mindset Podcast. My name is Mike, also known as the Used Book Guy on YouTube, along with my friend and fellow full-time reseller, Johnny B. We help people start and grow their reselling businesses from the ground up. We also have a weekly Zoom call and private Discord for all YouTube members. Head on over to youtube.com/usedbookguy to join the channel and gain access to the full-length podcast, Zoom call, and private Discord today. Let's get into this week's episode. What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Reseller's Mindset Podcast. Mike next to Johnny, as always. Today's topic is a fun but important one when it comes to basically running your own race. So what do I mean by that? I will go first because it's going to be a little bit different for me than it is Johnny because, believe it or not, we are both running completely different races in the same space. So for me, I think about it as the money I make in my business. Do I compare it to the money Johnny makes? Do I compare it to the money maybe your favorite reselling YouTuber? Maybe, do I want to beat Tech and Sports in the race? Do I want to beat Johnny in the race? Do I want to beat Mel in the race? All of these questions may come into your mind at one point in time as a reseller. And for me, honestly, especially as a YouTuber, because not only am I racing in the world of reselling, I'm racing in the world of YouTube, right? I got to get more subscribers than X, Y, and Z, and I got to make more money than Johnny sitting over here. And for the longest damn time, I'll be the first to admit I 100% guilty of this because I have a competitive spirit. So, I think to myself, if I'm not doing better than Johnny, I'm losing. Well, that's completely the wrong mindset to have. And it took me many, many years, many hard conversations. You can't see her back here, Deb, my wife sitting back there who has her own business. Her telling me to just give it up. You're just wasting energy and mental calories. So it doesn't make sense for you to even compare yourself to other people. For me to actually believe that that is the truth. And today I look at things in a completely different light than I did, say, 2 years ago. But for me, the big thing were my business and YouTube. I was always comparing myself to other people. But at the end of the day, who cares of what Johnny's making, right? Who cares? As long as you're making the money you need to make, as long as you're getting the results you're okay with getting, nothing else kind of matters. I don't know. What does it look like for you when it comes to comparing yourself to other resellers, or maybe you have something like YouTube where you want to be the biggest local bookstore in your area?
Um, it's a very interesting take. As far as all booksellers don't care, so we need to narrow down the scope, in my opinion. Who's doing Amazon? Okay, we've just slashed out primarity majority of all people just doing eBay, so they're gone out of my equation. And then who's doing baby bulk? Because that's what I consider myself. I don't consider myself the semi-truck kind of guy reseller, so I got to rule those people out. They're on a different level than I am. So people on the same level as myself doing similar kind of operation, that's who I have to compare against. And then are any of them running a storefront? What are their cost of goods? And finding these individuals to be open and talk about, to even know what you're comparing against, that's a harder task. So that list is really short. That's not to say I don't take the temperature, because even you and I compare numbers from time to time because we're running completely different business models. And in theory, bulk should outdo cherry picking, but that's not necessarily the case sometimes. You and I were really close one month when we were comparing numbers. So that means I have to take a stock of what I'm doing and reanalyze. However, factor in fun variables because I know you worked harder that month. You cranked up the capacity that you normally would do. I didn't. I just did the same status quo because I wasn't really nervous about Mr. Cherry Picker over there, to be honest. But we were really close. Now, should I have kicked it up a notch just to kick Mike's ass? Maybe. Um, but that's how I analyze it. But I don't, the number one thing to analyze is you year over year and you this month versus you last year that month, the same month to month, July to July kind of deal. Or July comparison to last July's comparison. Though you're in competition with yourself, in my opinion. You should be doing better than you were the year before. And if you're not, if you're analyzing on a month by month basis, why? What did you do to cause you to do worse or maintain the same? That's how I look at it. So I need to know me and I need to track my numbers. Now, getting the temperature, like I mentioned earlier, or everybody else that's similar to you, or in comparison to people you have access to, that's healthy to do too, but that's secondary in comparison to you, yourself, and your business operation, in my opinion.
The temperature of selling media on Amazon is kind of I just feel like I dictate the temperature in my own life and kind of those around me because we have the group, right? So you hear things like, sales are down or like sales are up. Like I just look to what I have going on and I'm like, how can you say, I mean, we talked about it, back at the beginning of summer, had one or two podcasts about summer slowdown. And like me and you just sit here and laugh about it because we look at our numbers and we're like, what is slowing down? Like there's nothing on this P&L that's slowing down. So like we dictate our own temperature, but the problem is if you let these other people start throwing their numbers around and you start buying into it, because listen, if me and Johnny are both doing the same exact dollar amount in sales, we're both doing $10,000 in sales this month. Do you know all Johnny's overhead expenses? Do you know Mike's living expenses? How much money is actually going into their bank accounts at the end of the year? So even if you do find somebody that's similar, unless you have all of their life details, I mean, like a full list of all their expenses, everything they have going on, you're never going to be able to have an equal comparison. Sure, you can get close to it, but I mean, we get so caught up because that's all people talk about, Johnny, especially in the Amazon spaces. How much they're selling, their sales, their sales. Well, me and sales in Amazon world mean absolutely nothing. People sell hundreds of thousands of dollars and make tens of dollars. Yes, tens of dollars on hundreds of thousands of dollars. And honestly, like anybody can do that if you're just willing, if you got credit, you just buy it up and spend it. So for me, it was tough getting over this idea that, I'm never going to be able to push the crazy number Johnny's pushing, right? Like Johnny one day will be pushing 25, 30 grand plus a month. And I have to accept the fact that in my business, where I currently want to be, where I see my future in my business, never going to be that guy. And if you can't live with that, then I mean, you're going to go balder than I have already, and you're going to lose your mind because you always think that you always have to be growing and you always want to beat Johnny, even if he gets a warehouse. Like I don't want employees, I don't want a warehouse. Johnny wants employees, wants a warehouse. Like how can I ever compete with that? There's just no way. And you got to accept that as sometimes you find the equilibrium in life and you just let it be. You make a bunch of money, you save a bunch of money, and if it works for you, so but yeah, I'm glad Johnny wants to have, a huge warehouse so I can take credit for it all.
Right. I mean, again, you just got to compare yourself. And you yourself have to be doing better than you did the day before. It is a day by day play, I think. We learn things every day. We find problems in our own business that we need to self correct. We find problems in our processes, our methodologies, our sourcing, and we correct those a day by day basis, a week by week basis, a month and a year to year basis, and we should always be doing better. Now, there are things outside of our control that happen that cause us to do less, like fees or the shipping label going up. Um, but we usually get a heads up on that. We usually know what the numbers are on that, and we can make adjustments in our own business to, okay, I'm back to the status quo, or here's how I'm going to make more money. If we know the shipping labels go up and you're charging for shipping either on merchant or on eBay, you can adjust your numbers accordingly. You not doing that will set you back. And then no wonder you didn't make as much as you did last year because the fees went up on your shipping labels. Or maybe it's your box purchasing, your shipping supply purchases. If you buy in bulk, you can save an average of 40 cents a unit. That adds up. Making plays like that make you a more profitable business. Um, and there's two things you can make money. You can sell more units, you could raise your ASP, or you can cut expenses. So there's three things really. So if you can do those three things every year until it's no longer possible, you just keep on doing that till it's no longer possible. And then, okay, what's my business look like? Does me adding another employee increase the output of what I'm able to do? Does me buying in bulk increase the output and or higher ASP items I'm able to accumulate to send in? These are the things we need to really focus on. This is the key to our business and selling media.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I'm not sitting here telling people not to like want growth or anything like that. But I'm here to tell everybody you're going to get to a point where there ain't no more time left for you to grow the business. So then you got to think next level. So you just got to figure out what you want. And it's a lot harder for new people because we've seen it in the group. We got a lot of new people that have joined, and like you compare yourself to like somebody like me or Johnny, and I think to myself like, no, like, and I always have to relate back to the story when I first started that I was doing sending one measly box every 2 weeks, which is like 35, 40 books. Like this wasn't what I'm doing, what I'm listing today and yesterday. my business looked completely different when I started. But nowadays, when people start, they just want to, I want to be like this person. I want to have this much in sales. And I always try to explain to people like Amazon, 6 months is like the beginner entry level. After you get past 6 months, then you're kind of in the intermediate level. And 6 months is a long time for people to kind of commit to as quote unquote a beginner in my eyes, but that's the reality of it. And yes, sure, strive for goals, set goals for yourself. Sure, I want to sell as much as X, Y, and Z, but have a plan to get there and realize there might come a point in time where you're just capped out and it's okay. If you're making the money and you're getting the results, sure. If I was doing this, my 3 days a week and I wasn't getting the results, then I need to spend more time or I need to find something else to do. Right. You don't just keep dragging it along. But if you get to that equilibrium, kind of like where I've fallen into where I'm spending less time and my money's still going up, that's perfectly fine. I don't need to go jump to get a warehouse. I don't need to think about all of a sudden I want to hire an employee. I just think to myself, okay, well, how can I spend maybe a little bit more time and keep the 10x money coming back in because I still have time to commit if I wanted to. It's a tough balancing act. And so many new people, man, you just fall into this trap of like, I want to be like Tech and Sports and sell all these clothes and be the number one clothing seller. And I'm like, the plane hasn't even got to the runway yet. Like they haven't even gassed up the plane for you to take off.
So a bunch of friends and I have been discussing, we can call them business acquaintances. I don't know if we're friends or not. Hey, Mike, are you a business acquaintance or a friend? Who knows? Anyway, to my point though, there is an argument for low cost, no cost versus paying up on something you really don't want to pay up on. Let's say we'll call it a repricer, or we'll call it buying bulk shipping supplies, or we'll call it buying the annual subscription to save you money. Money and time are our biggest detriments in business, I'm going to call it. And sometimes we focus on, I don't want to spend money right now. But other times it makes sense. If you're tripping over books in your home and you're walking sideways, how much time have you lost restacking those stacks of books or DVDs or CDs or video games versus, okay, it's just time to upgrade the facility I work in. And because tripping over things, constantly rearranging piles, that's an issue. It may not even cost money. It may cost you shelving. Let's get some shelving to solve the problem. And then once that problem occurs again with shelving, maybe then it's time to upgrade your space. If you think along those lines, how can I save time? Maybe it is me spending more money to work on making more money in my business with those minutes I've gotten back and that compounded hours, that compounded days, things like that we need to really be focusing on, even on a smaller level. Are our high level calls recorded or no? Because I want to out somebody if they aren't.
Like our next level calls?
Yeah, the next level calls.
Yeah, they're recorded and on the YouTube world.
Okay, so I'm gonna out him. Mr. Rob has found a way to work about 20 hours, maybe 25 hours a week, and make some big numbers. 10 plus 10,000 a month. For those that can't do math, that's 20,000 on 20 to 25 hours a month. That is
Oh,
utilizing his time more effectively. I took a look at that. I heard that he is working way less than me and making more money than me. Then that caused me, okay, I need to relook at my business. What did he do? And he said what he did. He changed his sourcing. Something as simple as that, working the same amount of hours to make significantly more money. And he told us his numbers he was making before that as well. Things like that can fundamentally change your business.
or they can break your heart because I'm a very listen. I talk about, my results and me doing, over 12,000. I'm basically a carbon copy of Rob just in a different area with a different sourcing strategy. And when he dropped, the fact that he did, 20K in a month, I almost fell out my chair. I said, well,
And
hold
you
on
two
here,
work the
buddy.
same amount of hours. You
I
two
said,
do.
what are you? The first question I had is, what the hell are you doing? Because I need to get in on this secret sauce. But it is crazy to think, right? We're talking about somebody who's working part-time hours, doing $20,000 in sales on Amazon, selling media, one of the most oversaturated junky categories out there. I mean, you're right. It was eye-opening for me too, and I'm sure it was for you because I know you ain't pushing that number yet, and you're working double what we are. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, do I compare myself to Rob still? Kind of, sort of. Like, I hope one day to be there, but like, I'm happy for him. But I'm not like, oh man, I gotta go and do exactly what Rob's doing. Sure, can I
No, you don't
probably?
need to go exactly what Rob's doing. It could be something upping your sourcing in general. It doesn't have to come from his exact kind of sourcing places. Um, so you are two in the similar lane. You're working the same amount of hours. You're both cherry picking. He just changed his sourcing. For you, it may be doing something like, okay, I'm using these libraries. If I can trade up in a more profitable library area, or I know you've pretty much maximized your thrifting bubble, so I don't think it's in the thrifting route. It would have to be something along the libraries or estate sales, or get into private collections that you find on Facebook and Craigslist. I think would be the next play for you. And then you can compare. Okay, I've maximized the sourcing in my area. I'm still doing 3,000 less than Mr. Rob. I've done everything I can. However, how do I get up to Rob's level? Here's how I would go with it. Okay, what expenses can I cut? Is it like the example I used earlier was buying bulk shipping supplies to save myself 30% for the year because I'm going to buy these shipping supplies throughout the entire year. Okay, I've now saved 3,000. I can now add that into my total. Now I'm up to Rob's level. I just went about it a different way, but I'm still on the same plane. Or maybe you kick his ass, you're able to save 6K. Now I'm 3 grand above Rob. So things like that, you can go along the route they went, or figure out things that get you to the same end result that aren't on that same exact pathway. So cutting expenses again was one of the methods I mentioned to raise your all overall annual thing for the year. Everybody should be figuring out, how can I cut expenses on the low cost, no cost kind of mentality? How can I get my time back, which I then reutilize to make more profitable money? Either changing your sources, adding sources is another thing. So maybe you just work 1 extra hour more if that's what it takes. If you have this goal in mind, that 1 extra hour a week times 52 weeks, isn't it? So that's like getting yourself 2.5, 3 weeks back of extra work, and that puts you above Rob or on par with Rob. Just doing things like that. There's all kinds of ways to do it, folks. All kinds of ways. There's no blueprint methodology. This is how you do it. No, this is how Rob did it. This is how Mike did it. This is how Johnny did it. Take a little from this and that, maxing out the best of your ability. And then, okay, I'm capped. Why am I capped? What can I do to make myself uncapped? That's all you have to do. You don't have to increase the hours, or maybe you do, or maybe you don't. You just got to figure it out.
I printed a photo of Rob. Every time I go out to source, I throw a dart right on his head. Boom, boom, boom. Nah, Rob's a good guy. He's been in the group for well over a year, probably over 2 years now. So I'm glad when people are doing a lot better than me, because I know the money I make today, I'm comfortable making, right? But still, I want more money, dude. Like, I'm Mr. Krabs. Like, it needs to be raining dollar bills on me. I want to be selling Krabby Patties all the time. So like, I think to myself, I see it as potential. When someone hits me with something crazy like that, I'm like, wait a minute, like, this unicorns exist. Like, I just seen a leprechaun. Oh, he's right outside right now. He's actually, and he's got a pot of gold, and it's real gold. It's not the chocolate candy gold. So like, it's just proof of concept, I guess, when you hear some of these people and you know like their numbers and they're open about it. But I never get to a point where I got to go 1 for 1 with Rob. Like, he's on my hit list now. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to keep growing? I'm going to keep growing and get my time back. I don't want to be doing this 40, 50 hours a week, and kind of just go from there. And even if we make the comparison to like me to Rob, right? Like kind of you said, I have other streams of income that Rob doesn't have, right? Rob doesn't do YouTube. That I know of, he doesn't do the influencer program. So there's a lot of other things you have to take into consideration when it comes to what you want, what you have going on when it comes to business opportunities. And direct comparisons at the end of the day, they're good for about a day. And then after a day, you're you're just gonna eat yourself up about it, and you're never gonna get to the point where you're happy, because guess what? If I do beat Rob, there's going to be somebody else that's a little bit bigger than Rob. And then all of a sudden, I'm going for Rob Senior. And then after Rob Senior, there's Rob Senior Senior. Like, there's always somebody else you can compare yourself to. Like, it's a never-ending trap.
Well, here's the thing. Um, Rob's the only one I know working that kind of hours, pushing that kind of money. And it's like, who does he talk to? How does he compare himself at Rob's level? How do I go from 20 to 30 working 25 hours a week? He's got to figure that out himself. There's nobody that I'm aware of that he has access to compare himself. Um, it's like, where do you go from here? You got to do the hard part. And those people that are at that stage have to do the work themselves to figure out how they can maximize another 5,000 a month or 2,000 or 10,000 extra a month. They have to try and experiment things, and some of those tries and experiments may not work. It may set them back. They may $2,000 or $3,000 investment may be a negative because of whatever reason. But going back to a more simplistic, or not simplistic, just a different way to do it, like how you ignored kids' books and cassettes for the longest time, but you've now added them to your business, and I'm going to assume that's increased your business revenue overall. So simple things like that, like what have we been ignoring, or we never put the research into to really have a direct answer to make our business better. I got CDs and DVDs behind me. I'm a book guy, right? Why the hell do I have these things? Well, I know they complement my business and add extra revenue to my business, and I run a business. I don't run books for books' sake. I like money. Um, and then, Johnny, why don't you do video games? Well, there's complications that come with that. Or why don't you do furniture? Or why don't you do this, that, and the other? I mean, I got to do what's right for me and comfortable for me. Right now, CDs, DVDs, and a little bit of cassettes and books is comfortable for me. May I add these additional things on later? Maybe. Or maybe I don't.
uh, Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, he sold Krabby Patties, and then once upon a time he started selling Krusty Krab pizza, right? So like sometimes you gotta switch it up and add different things
Yeah.
to the menu, but you can't get crazy with it. And I do agree that cassettes and even sourcing methods, you kind of already hit it on the head. Like I've been sourcing at better locations. We talk about them in the group all the time, like places I never would even think about stepping into 2, 3 years ago. Like record shops. That's one nobody even thinks about. Like they got the best quality stuff, even if you got to pay up a little bit for it. They have thousands and thousands of things besides records. So imagine that. I wanted to hit a little bit on the because we live in such a social media centric driven world, YouTube world. I know you're not big into social media, but you've kind of been in, marketing uh roles in your past lifetime. So I think a lot of people get caught up with how many followers they have, how many subscribers they have, how many, likes a video gets, especially in the reselling world. And I think that's a main driving force because people start reselling on YouTube and they think, well, I'm going to make a whole bunch of money off it. And a lot of people are going to watch my videos. And I'm living proof that that is not the case. I mean, we're talking, I don't even know how long I've been doing YouTube, probably over 4 years, thousands of videos. And like, I don't make any decent money where I could just stop, my reselling business and live off the YouTube money. So I can understand the struggle. And when you see maybe your favorite reseller isn't posting as much or they stop posting altogether, that's the reason why, because they're probably comparing themselves to somebody else. The bank account isn't going up because you spend all this time doing YouTube videos and you really don't make no money on the back end from it. So it's tough to be like, all right, I don't care how many subscribers Tech has. He just started his YouTube channel. I'm gonna do a direct one right now. Tech and Sports. He just did his YouTube channel, I think at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
He's got like 10 times the amount of subscribers I do, right? So what entitles him to more subscribers than somebody like me who's been doing it for 5 years? Well, he built an audience outside of YouTube before he started. And just making the comparison just doesn't make sense because somebody falls into the category of reselling. Like, I understand that my niche, reselling media on Amazon, it's only so big, Johnny. There's not 10 million people out there, like I'm never going to be able to do like the Squid Games, like Mr. Beast of like Amazon FBA sellers. There's not enough people out there. So you accept the fact that, okay, this is my niche. I'm only going to be able to grow this. Maybe one day, if I'm lucky, I'll have like 50,000 subscribers, right? So like sooner or later it caps out, right? I don't have this endless infinite money mindset when it comes to YouTube. And you got to just be fine with that. And I think there are ways, even though you're not the biggest channel, right? We have the membership, you help me along the way with that. And that puts a little bit of extra money in your pocket. But there's other ways to think outside the box to stop comparing yourself and grow your results.
Well, and I don't want to our young YouTubers that are growing their own channels, I don't want to dishearten them for, oh man, burst their
It's
bubble.
going to take years. It's
It's
going to
going to
take
take
years.
years. Now, there are some of the benefits of it, like you've been able to network and I assume come across deals that you would normally not have had access to by not doing YouTube. Plus, you got to meet starling individuals like myself over here. There is that.
Oh man, dude, the trade-offs are rough, dude. If I had to go back and choose, I don't know, man. I don't want to throw you out to the wolves here, but like if I had to go back and choose at the inflection point and I knew what the progress would look like, if they said, "Here, Mike, here's what it's going to be in 10 years. Here's all the time you're going to work, and then here's the good that's going to come out of it." It's tough, man. It's a tough choice. I'm going to be straight up with you. Like I know I've helped a lot of people. I've built amazing friendships. The podcast itself has helped a lot of people, but the time that it takes, the effort that it takes, it is a million times harder to be a social media influencer, guru, YouTuber than it is doing this business. It's not even close. It's night and day the amount of time you can spend on this and get no results versus, I mean, think about it. We're gonna be on our 100th episode, right? Like, we should be rich
100
and famous.
episodes.
We should be
Yeah.
rich and famous by now, dude. And like, it's crazy to me, but consistency. So even if I have the shittiest business, the shittiest YouTube channel, if I'm consistent with sending inventory in, consistent with uploading videos, you will see growth. It might not be the crazy viral growth you expect, but if you're consistent, no matter what you do, you will get results, even if you're not the best at it. Even if you suck at what you do, even if I suck at video editing, like I used to edit my own videos. They were terrible, but it was the consistency of always uploading, the consistency of always sending boxes to Amazon. It's the only way I ever got to 4,500 items in inventory was the crappy little boxes I sent along the way. It wasn't 1 week where I just sent 4,000 items. It was consistent growth across the way.
Right, absolutely. Now, that's why I was so happy when you said I could just show up to these things and not have to do any of the work. I was like I want to help people, but I don't want to get involved with the constant Q&A. And you're like, no, I'll do that. I'm like, okay, good. And then I'll just show up because otherwise, I don't think there would have been a podcast here. Um,
It's
I
too much.
it's too much, and I realized that. And then you jokingly, somewhat seriously, sometimes, Johnny, why don't you start your own YouTube? Hell no. That's a grind. B, I have no desire to do that. I like helping people, but I have no desire to make a whole YouTube thing verse to do that with. And the extra work that would deviate me from my core business, which is reselling, I, I'm not a fan of that. So this was a healthy compromise where I do get to help people from time to time, do these podcasts because this is a good outlet for me to talk about reselling outside of a grouped kind of session. Um, and I think this is the best thing I could do. May I do something social media on down the road? Maybe, probably not. And I'll probably hire somebody to puppet me and pretend to be me and all that. That's probably the best thing I will do along those lines, if I even do that. Um, but no, it's a lot of work doing what Mike does over here. Think about all the emails, all the private messages he gets across many platforms, not just one, because Mike is out there on multitude of social medias
You
and
gotta
the
be.
Discord.
Yeah, you gotta be.
And then there's these calls that he's got to do. It adds up. So he could pump those same hours into his reselling business, but I think he's satisfied with the amount of money he's making and being able to help people is why he's do it and not just throw it out the door, throw it in the trash can rather. Like I'm done with it, no more. May that change in 10 years, 15 years? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to is what are you comfortable with today? It doesn't matter what I'm comfortable with. Doesn't matter what Johnny's comfortable with. Doesn't matter how many items I'm sending this week. Doesn't matter how many items are you sending this week? What are your goals? What are where do you want to get to when it comes to your business? And when you get there, what is the next step? Do you maintain or do you continue growing? I have a lot of people in the reselling world, they always got to be growing. I got to list 5 a day. I got to list 10 a day, 15, 20, 20. It's like you never ever really reach the end of the road because you're always moving the goalpost. It's like, relax. It's perfectly fine to maintain where you're at if you're making the money you want to make. You don't have to continually, and a lot of these people, unfortunately, chasing these numbers, you just run yourself straight into the ground. And what happens, not only do you not hit your next goal, you start to go backwards, and that's the big trap resellers fall into is you always want to be growing, you always want to be making more money. But at a point, I think to myself, if I was miserable doing this, I might as well just go get a job, right? Where they're going to get full benefits, retirement benefits, and I can just show up 5 days a week, be a zombie, and then when I'm not there, I don't have to worry about it. Like the whole point of doing this is to have financial freedom and like personal freedom. I mean, that's all it comes down to. And if you don't got either of those right now, then they need to be on your little goal planner here of how you're going to get closer to one or the other of them pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, even me, I've been reanalyzing now that I'm in Amazon. Maybe I don't have to work 7 days a week, but that's a hard thing to ask me when I had to work 7 days a week. Like, I don't know. I think I can have some more flexibility than I do. But I also realize I'm not at the point where I want to take a day off or 2 days off a week with my Amazon business because I am wanting to grow right now. But once I have employees and or a bigger space, I may dial it back on my own personal hours I pump in, or maybe I work from home instead of the warehouse on those couple of days and just do some light work. But I'm at home, right? In my own quote unquote, well, not a quote, just a fact, home environment, right? Versus the warehouse environment.
When I compare myself, like when Johnny just says he works 7 days a week, first thing that comes to my mind, it ain't that I got to go work 7 days a week. It's that he's a crazy SOB. And I'll tell you right now, uh, you're not gonna be able to give this guy a day off. Like I gotta pull teeth just to have so we have one podcast recording uh weekend off because it just goes. So when you hear people like Johnny come along and like, oh, this guy's working 7 days a week, like how can I work 5, 6, 7 days a week? I think the opposite. I'm like, Johnny, I'm trying to work 1 day a week, dude. You're nuts. Like you're off the rock. And it's not even just with Johnny. It's like when I hear these people doing these crazy things and working these crazy and driving across, country and sourcing stuff. I'm just like, you're crazy. More power to you. I hope it works out. But like I'm working in the opposite direction. I just, want the books to magically grow wings, all the profitable books, float up to my third story window. I got a little net, just catch the net and listen, I want it to be as painless and as little bit of time as possible. And I mean, it is what it is. I want to work less and make more. And I might sound greedy. I might sound like shallow, like, oh, resellers, you got to be in your business all the time. Well, the whole reason I got to where I am is because I didn't have that mentality from the beginning and call it, I don't even know what you would call it, like greedy, short-sighted, the fact that I don't know, like what would you call it, Johnny? The fact that I didn't want to work as much, but I wanted to make more money. Like there's some kind of negative adjective that goes with that. And I was like, the hell with it. That's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. Nobody else out there is saying they want to work less and make more money. Well, I want to be that guy.
Complacently lazy, maybe?
There you go. 100%. I don't want to be out in the stores 5 days a week. And
Yeah.
I figured, well, if it's possible, right? Because there's business models out there that do it, not in the context of like thrifting, but like, online arbitrage, virtual assistants, things you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
There's ways you can do it in that business model. So I thought to myself, well, there's got to be a way we can do it over here in the thrifting life because I'm not sitting at the Goodwill bins. I'm not sitting at the stores all day long, and you kind of develop your plan and build it out. And not everything's going to be successful. I made plenty of missteps along the way, and I'm still always refining things. But I don't compare myself to no one. I'd like to when you're doing things nobody else is doing, and you're getting results. Like that's like the secret sauce. I always tell everybody like you're not going to find another one of me. You're not going to find another one of Johnny. We're not going to find another one of you out there wherever you are right now in your business. So capitalize on your strengths and what you want from the business and build around it. If you don't want to work all day, don't have the don't say I'm going to have this business plan of where I'm going to be working all day. Like that just doesn't make sense. Like be real with yourself. Like what do you want out of it?
Right. And a person like myself who wants gigantic warehouse, wants giant staff and all of that, those funsy things, and then multitude of businesses even outside of that. My exit plan or the growing plan is to plug somebody in who moves boxes from point A to point B, packages the boxes. And my personal workload will become less and less and less over time. And or the workload I actually do is me just clicking on a keyboard all day, maybe listening to some tunes while I do it. So the grind becomes less of a grind and it's just more a money making task. And even How many of those money-making tasks do I need to do a year, in a week, in a day? I think that even becomes less and less and less over time with the direction I'm wanting to go. For a person like Mike, maybe he just has loads come to him and his whole thrift route is gone. He no longer has these horrible, well, I know he thinks I'm horrible drive times.
1 hour. Oh my God. People are
I
like,
know.
I drive 6 hours one way, dude. You're a loser. I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. And it just comes to him and he processes it somewhere, or he has his minion process for him and he just oversees. Um, so improving your quality of work life, I think, comes with time and building your business. And to Mike's point of constantly grow, why don't you do like 2 years of growing, 1 year of maintaining? In less than maintaining, you're not beating the inflation rate, but you'll figure out ways to beat the inflation rate. I promise you, even that 1 year maintain. So you take 2 years. Okay, we upgraded to warehouse. Great. We're maintaining this for 1 year. Next year comes along. Okay, now we're plugging in staff into the warehouse. Do that for 2 years and then 1 year maintain. And then the next year, okay, we're good on staff. The space is perfect. Let's upgrade equipment and tools for everybody. Get all the redundancies in place. Have backup computers. So you do that for 2 years, and then the next year, well, I don't need anything else. Maybe it's time for me to get a manager, and then I just remove myself from the equation and collect a check and maybe attend a once a month meeting with said manager to make sure everything's above board. Or, hey, the numbers are down. Why the hell are the numbers down, manager? Explain this to me, or I'm going to get a new manager.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. We are going to do a members part of this podcast, Johnny. So buckle up here once I wrap this up.
It's been a while.
Yes, it has been, but I got a lot to say on this, and I like being more direct with people, I guess. But to wrap this up, this podcast episode up, I'm running. Me and Johnny, we're athletes. We're track stars. I'm running the 50-yard dash. Johnny's running the 5K. You put me on Johnny's track, I got no chance, right? I hit the 50 yards and I'm done. I can't run no more. And Johnny's just coasting along, doing his little steady jog here. That is the equivalent of what we're talking about today. Your business is your business. You don't have to worry about what other people are doing. If you get results, and if you're not getting results, how can you get the results you want to get? And when you get there, is it okay to maintain, right? We have a lot of people over in the group that are just like, hey, I want to make, my goal is to make $500 a month. Well, then they get there and all of a sudden I want to make $2,000 a month. I'm like, oh, there's lots of changes that have to come into place for you to get to that next number. So just have that in mind. It's okay to compare yourself to an extent, but don't let it eat you up. Don't let somebody else control your business, because that's basically what you're doing. If I compare myself to Johnny's business, then I'm letting him dictate whatever his number is, dictates what my number has to be. And it should not be like that at all. So we'll talk to you all in next week's episode. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. Today's full episode and all previous episodes are available to all YouTube members, along with the weekly Zoom call and private Discord. Head on over to youtube.com/theusebookguy and consider joining for as little as $2.99 a month.